In a bustling office filled with the hum of computers and the rustle of paperwork, two women stood out for their close bond. Precious and her colleague, who had grown inseparable over the years, were often seen laughing and sharing secrets. Their friendship was admired by many, yet beneath the surface, a dark shadow of envy brewed in Precious's heart. Her friend, blessed with an infectious charm, seemed to glide through life with effortless grace. People naturally gravitated towards her, showering her with affection and praise. She was a star in the office, and her hard work did not go unnoticed. The day came when she was promoted to a prestigious position, a role that Precious had secretly coveted. The news of her friend's promotion felt like a dagger to Precious's heart. She masked her disappointment with a forced smile, but inside, anger festered. Precious couldn't understand why she was always second best, why the world seemed to favor her friend over her. The bitterness grew until it consumed her, turning admiration into resentment and resentment into a deadly resolve. Precious began to plot, her mind clouded by jealousy. She knew that her friend trusted her completely, as did everyone else in the office. No one would ever suspect her after all. They were like sisters. One fateful afternoon, as deadlines loomed and stress ran high, her friend asked Precious to grab lunch for her. She was swamped with work and couldn't leave her desk. Precious's heart raced with a dark excitement. This was the opportunity she had been waiting for. With a sweet smile, she agreed and left with a group of colleagues to get the food. They returned with bags of takeout, the smell of the meals filling the air. Precious carefully separated her friend's food from the rest, using a tiny vial she had hidden in her purse. A few drops were all it took. The poison was tasteless, odorless, and lethal. She placed the food on her friend's desk, her hands shaking slightly, but her expression remained calm and innocent. Her friend thanked her with a grateful smile and took a bite of the meal. Precious watched from her desk, feigning concern when her friend suddenly began to cough, her face turning pale. The entire office went into a frenzy as her friend collapsed, gasping for breath. Someone called an ambulance, but it was too late. She died on the way to the hospital, leaving everyone in shock and disbelief. The news of her sudden death spread quickly. The office was plunged into mourning, with co-workers whispering about what could have caused such a tragedy. The doctors couldn't pinpoint the exact cause of death, leaving it a mystery. Precious played her part well, shedding tears and expressing her grief. No one had the slightest suspicion that she was involved. Days passed, and the day of the funeral arrived. The atmosphere was heavy with sorrow as family, friends, and colleagues gathered to pay their respects. Her mother, heartbroken and filled with rage, stood before the casket, her voice trembling with emotion as she spoke. "My daughter's death was no accident. Whoever is responsible for this wickedness, may you be cursed. May madness consume you from this very moment." The crowd gasped, but no one expected what happened next. Precious, who had been standing silently among the mourners, suddenly let out a piercing scream. Her eyes rolled back, and she collapsed to the ground, writhing and pulling at her hair. The crowd watched in horror as Precious began to babble incoherently, her face twisted in agony. She crawled towards the casket, tears streaming down her face, and began to confess her crime, her voice barely a whisper. "I did it. I killed her. I didn't mean to. I just wanted the promotion." Her confession sent shockwaves through the gathering. No one could believe that the sweet, kind Precious, who had been like a sister to the deceased, was capable of such a heinous act. The realization hit them. Thunderclap envy had driven her to murder. As her words faded, Precious let out another scream and bolted from the gathering, tearing at her clothes, her mind unraveling with each step. She ran through the streets, her laughter echoing like the cries of a banshee, until she disappeared into the distance, lost to the madness that now consumed her. The crowd was left in stunned silence, their hearts heavy with grief and disbelief. They had lost a people that day one to poison, the other to envy and insanity. The lesson was clear, and it was one that would be remembered for generations. Envy is a deadly poison, one that can destroy not just the envied, but the envious as well. The moral lesson of this story is that envy can lead to destructive actions, but the truth will always come to light, and the consequences can be far worse than the original desire.